A family of four can easily spend $6,000 to $10,000 on a Disney trip. Tickets, flights, food, merchandise, lightning lanes. By the time it's all over, you're looking at the cost of a used car. So the real question isn't whether Disney isn't magical. The real question is it still worth it?
Or are we just paying for nostalgia? Today we're going to be breaking down the real numbers and who Disney actually is for and who it may not be for.
Let's go ahead and find that out.
All right, welcome back to Buy Your Kids a House podcast. Again, I'm Andrew and this is Matt. And today we're going to be talking about Disney. It is going to be our health and travel segment. And we're going to start breaking down the real cost of what Disney actually is. And we want to know from you as well. Like, comment, subscribe, put in the comments if you love Disney, you spend anything for Disney, or if you're just kind of like, maybe not Disney, let's save some money and go to a different place, or go overseas maybe, because the cost can be about the same.
Yeah. And I think we can all agree, a trip to Disney is no longer cheap. And I'm not saying it ever really was cheap and affordable. It's generally been always a little bit more of a premium experience and everything. But in the past couple of years, we've really seen the price of everything skyrocket, and we really, with that, have to take into consideration now: is it actually worth it at the price points that it's at? I mean, if you're looking for 4 to 5 days worth of park tickets, you're usually just dropping a couple of grand a year. If you go to annual pass route, it can be $1,000 or more per person and everything for that. Hotels, you're looking at, a couple grand, $1,500, $2,000 for even just the moderate resorts and everything. If you're going to the premium resorts on there, like, you're dropping, 5-10 grand for your stay while there. Food has really jumped up in price. I mean, again, dinner we've seen, for a family of four and everything, you're easily going to drop, $400 or $500 on just dinner. So, every day you can, you're staying there, and you're looking at, probably about $600 to $1,000 for food budget. And then if you get any merchandise along the way, I mean, kids always want those Mickey ears and light up wands and everything.
Say bubble wands, the ears.
Your other premium experiences like your Bibbidi Bobbidi boutiques, or if you also are trying to have more of a premium experience to skip the line, whether it's through lightning lanes, the individual lightning lanes, paying for the premier lightning lane, or also really going all out and getting your VIP tour guide. Like, those could really add up in there.
Oh yeah, no, it just starts stacking and stacking and stacking on top of everything. And those numbers aren't forgiving. So we definitely really got to look at this within our budget when we're planning a vacation to Disney, for sure, and making sure that we're not overextending ourselves.
Yeah, so is it now a once in a lifetime experience? Is it, a pass on for some people? How can you even afford to do it on a more consistent, regular basis and everything? These are all areas you have to take into consideration of how much it costs, and again, fitting into that 50, 30, 20 budget, and at what income bracket do you need to be at to even think about coming. So these are all areas that we need to explore and dive into, and then see, are you getting the return on that as well for the experience of what you're paying for.
All right, well, let's start looking into it.
Yeah. So I think, first off, we need to cover a little bit of what it's like going to Disney, and what you're actually getting in that process of experiencing Disney, and basically kind of who it's geared for and designed for. And the first main aspect is you're having the whole Disney brand with it, and that's not just the theme parks. That's all the movies and shows and other little short clips and everything they've created over years that have that brand that you now know all these characters, whether they're the animated or live action characters. And then getting to go to the parks and experiencing that in person, and really diving into the whole environment, whether you're at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, or you're enjoying Mickey's Runaway Railway with the Fabulous Five characters on there, going back and forth with those. And then you also have like kind of the nostalgia factor of odds are you probably were a little kid at one point, and now you remember going back and you're trying to pass it on to your kids and that. So there's several different elements of what Disney has to offer in there.
Exactly. And Disney does everything at such an elevated level too. Like, even just walking in, you already have your senses, every single one of them, just, no, I wouldn't say bombarded, but like, you walk in and they're all going off, from first walking onto Main Street and you're smelling those cinnamon waffle cones, and you're seeing the castle, and you're seeing like all of this, just the ingenuity to see it when you walk in. I don't know, words are hard to describe. The first time you see a castle, because I'm thinking back now, the first time I walked in, not experiencing Disney before my adult years at all.
No.
I never went to it as a kid, but like, even as an adult, there's nothing like that moment of walking through the train station and you come onto Main Street and you see the castle and you're hearing the sounds, the musics for that era, the sound, the smells, everything is just like hitting you all at once, but in such a great way. And it's done on purpose.
Yeah.
Everything Disney does, they engineer it to be done with a purpose. So there's nothing ever done on accident, which is something to me that separates them from a lot of other theme parks.
And again, that's part of their storytelling atmosphere of it and everything. What blends in their other IPs into the storytelling element in the parks, their attention to detail. It's always pristine and clean in that aspect. They know how to captivate the whole audience in that immersive story and really tug at your heartstrings in that. And then when you're tugging at those emotional heartstrings, that's where they can also attack your wall in that aspect, because that's what you're paying for. And maybe if you go to other amusement parks and things, I'm not bashing these other amusement parks, but maybe that's where they lack a little bit because the budget isn't quite there and everything. Their attention to detail drops off a little bit. There's not as cohesive of a storyline. It's can seem very fragmented and sectionalized. And you're going in and like, yes, you want to ride big roller coaster, but all it is just a big roller coaster. It doesn't necessarily tell a story that goes along with it. There's these at Disney, these parks and everything. Yes, you're riding a ride for the thrills of the ride, but it's telling that whole cohesive story with the attraction beyond just the fact that like I'm on a roller coaster or I'm on a motion cart or I'm on a normal dark ride going through. There's so much more to what the package is, and that's part of what you're paying for in that aspect. And again, Disney does deliver in that area. So
yeah, no, and something to tag along that a lot of people don't know is when you're talking about the storytelling, like beyond just your characters that you know and love, but every single ride, every single section, every single building, even on Main Street, the windows, every single one of them has a backstory and a story to tell. Even if you as a guest don't get to hear it necessarily, but the cast members are told these things and given them a backstory to go off of to really immerse you as well, to have that even subconsciously. You're not getting told the direct story maybe, but you're feeling it, you're living it, because everyone else is playing this part specifically to whatever area or attraction you're doing, and that is super special.
No, and again, and it brings a repeatability also with that, because again, it is with at least for the Orlando parks, with having the four main parks here, it is very hard for anyone to come and experience everything all at once.
Yeah.
So again, you're going to have to cut some corners, and that leads to maybe having the feeling of having to come back to find out about those details. Maybe you left and you found out something. Oh man, I didn't even know about that, and you want to come back and see it. And then there's also, Disney does a great job also when it comes to the seasonal aspect of things. Very few parks have I seen do Halloween and Christmas as well as what Disney has to offer. Even when you're not going to those extra ticketed events, even just going in the normal daytime and experiencing what the parks have during those seasons is top notch. The way they're able to transform virtually overnight.
Literally overnight.
Yeah, but you've watched some of these videos of how they do it and everything. Yeah. It's really the time lapse video of it's really, really impressive how they're able to. But to go in and have these overnight these fall element colors, and then after that to go into a full winter type decor and everything, and the different Christmas lights and everything, really helps transport you, make you feel like a part of those holidays during those times, which I think is really where also Disney can shine in that area is that fall and winter time during those festivities and everything. But again, maybe you came in the summertime and you didn't get to experience those. Definitely can make you want to come back and experience it, and it can be very tie into that budget a little bit and everything. So
yeah, and so Disney does have a lot to offer, but I think next we're going to be talking about who it's worth it for and who it may not be.
Yeah, exactly. So I think in here we're going to kind of cover the ideas of who a Disney trip would be for and maybe who it isn't for. We definitely want to cover the aspects of it from a financial standpoint, but also from just a personal preference standpoint, because let's be honest, Disney isn't for everyone. Not everyone grew up on watching these movies and characters and they don't have the personal ties to it. And if you don't have a personal tie to the Disney IP out there and everything, there really isn't a point in going. You wouldn't enjoy it as much and everything. All you see is like, why did I spend $10,000 on this? I just have Mickey Mouse waiting on me. I don't like Mickey Mouse. Like there's not a reason for me to be there for that.
Right.
But what I do think is, especially for those that grew up on Disney IP or passing it on to their kids, passing it on to their grandkids, that's really where Disney kind of pulls you in a little bit more and everything. And I like going with smaller and younger children because some people say like, oh, Disney doesn't have thrill rides compared to other competing parks in the area. Although some of the newer ones I do think are starting to compete on that level. I think
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy and that like is definitely,
So fun.
yeah, it's a great ride. But I think that's on more of a thrill level compared to what Disney used to have to offer. But it is, I think, still geared towards younger kids. And some people say, oh, don't bring a kid till they're 4 or 5 because they won't remember and everything. But I'm a sucker for taking smaller kids because yes, the younger kid might not have the memory, but mom and dad will. And then you have those great memories of them first seeing the character and seeing that interaction there. But you definitely want to bring them back to where then they can remember. So you got to keep that in your head of like, well, I spent $10,000 from the go when they don't remember it. Well, now I got to spend another $10,000 to go when they aren't going to remember it. So you got to definitely keep that in the back of your head because when you're looking at that 50, 30, 20 budget, $10,000, and I'm saying $10,000 almost as a floor to go.
Yeah,
it's probably going to take you 3 to 5 years to save that up to be able to do that kind of trip.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, Disney, where it kind of shines is that it's for all ages. And, it was built that way originally for Walt. He decided to do a theme park because he wanted to go somewhere where his whole family can enjoy everything, including the adults. And I think they do that well. But like you said, if you're only looking for the thrill rides and things like that, maybe it's not quite for you because we do have a couple. We have some good ones that are a little bit more thrill ride, but it's nothing like other competing theme parks that have these massive roller coasters and thrill rides out there to do. But any age, I think, is a really good age to come. Even not many people know this, but there is a functioning barber shop at the front of Main Street that they specialize in babies' first haircuts.
Both mine did that.
Yeah. See, so and you get a little certificate, and you get things to take with you, and you take pictures, and those will last forever.
Yeah.
Those memories are just going to continue to build, and that's really where Disney shines, is those memories that you're able to build with each other. But like you said, if you do take them that young, you're going to want to have to take them back. So really focusing in on your budget. If like you were really wanting to go to Disney, like you were saying, 10,000 is almost a minimum for a family of 4 to be able to get everyone into the parks, travel time, food, stay, all of that. And that isn't cheap.
No, it's definitely not cheap. And that's where, again, you have to be really tied into the storytelling and IP element. If you are just a roller coaster junkie, you're not going to then appreciate Disney and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go to your big amusement parks that have the big roller coasters, and you just want to have the big drops, the speed, the whatever, and everything. You're not worried about the storytelling element. The storytelling element is what separates Disney, and with that then comes into then the price point of that and everything. So, is it worth the $10,000 for that experience? That's up to you to decide in a sense of how attached you are to the storytelling element of it. I personally am.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm there with you. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. So again, how do you fit that in then? Because again, is it worth going for that once in a lifetime experience? I say definitely to do it.
Yep.
But how are we able to afford to go multiple times and everything? Like we can maybe figure out ways to maybe make it where it is maybe a little less than that $10,000 level, or at least how to spread it out a little bit and where maybe it can fit into where it is more of a repeatable experience and everything. Because again, as we mentioned, you're bringing your smaller, younger kids there that aren't going to remember it. Well, you want to come back with them. And then, eventually your grandma and grandpa, you're going to bring the next generation and everything. So, you're trying to go maybe 3 to 4 or more times in a lifetime. That adds up a lot and everything. And then how can we maybe have it where it is a little more budget friendly, and we can figure out where to cut those corners and how to plan for this in a larger package.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think now we're going to kind of really focus on ways that we can help, save a little bit of money and make Disney a little more affordable, or other maybe tactics, things you might want to do to help maybe stretch things out, and where you can get your Disney fix, if you will, without necessarily having to spend fully to go to the parks and everything. And the first one obviously is initially the tack is the price of admission, which would be the tickets going into the park and everything. Two of the main ways to attack it first off is bundling with larger days and everything. So the most expensive ticket is going to be your 1 day ticket. The more days, whether it's 5, 7, 10 that you add on, they spread that cost out, make it a little more affordable. Or to go to the full extreme is the annual pass route. And then looking at the different tiers of where that fits in and everything with you, but also you have to know that you're going to be using that annual pass, because if you're not using it, like, it's not really going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah, no, and that's a great option to look into if you're planning on coming more consistently instead of the once in a lifetime opportunity. Another thing that we both were looking into was staying off property. Because the convenience of staying on Disney property is definitely fantastic. You have the buses running constantly. You can get anywhere without needing your own like rental car and things like that. But it comes at a price.
Yeah.
The price is quite a bit more for sure than it would be to stay somewhere like even 2-3 miles off property at just your standard like Hilton or Marriott. They are going to be quite a bit cheaper. You're going to have to travel a little bit more, and you may have to get a rental car if you're visiting. So that might offset it a little bit, but it's still definitely a cheaper option than staying on property.
Yeah, and then that's where you got to balance things out. Again, transportation cost is huge. To park at a Disney park has a cost. To have a rental car or a taxi service or Uber or whatever transporting you has a cost. But does that cost still less than the offset price of the hotel? And then another little area in there is also stretching the food budget. And some of these offsite hotels a lot of times will have continental breakfasts or cheaper snack options and everything within the hotel. On Disney site properties have plenty of food options, but they're all at a cost.
Mm-hmm.
There is no, unless you're at the concierge level, which then you're paying already for the concierge level.
Right.
So, we're not saving money that way for sure. But with that, like, on-site properties, like, everything's going to have a cost for the food on there. Now, a lot of these more family suites or the DVC style ones on there will have a kitchenette of some sort on there, so you can bring your own food on there, especially your breakfast style food. Things are you're not gonna have as much you can cook with and everything, but you can at least still have the ability to get your basic breakfast, your sandwiches, your cereals, bagels, coffees in the morning and everything. You covered just coffee.
As I said, previous episode.
Yeah, exactly. We can dive back into that, but we can go into what the different worth of having the food options on there, which will help stretch that budget out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, eating on property, again, you're going to be in the parks for a good chunk of your day. You got to look at also stretching that budget out and everything. So as we mentioned already, saving a little bit on eating, at the hotel for breakfast and everything. But once you're in there, looking at where your best bang for buck is on your quick service for lunch and even possibly for dinner. Now, I'm not saying to avoid eating at the table service restaurants. I think they're great experiences there. But you definitely got to go in with the mindset of what it is worth it for you, plus also the amount of food you're getting.
Yeah.
I know many times, we'll see people that are there and they've gotten the dining plan, to have the table service every single day. And by the time they hit that third, fourth day, they're almost not enjoying the food because it's so much food. It's almost like eating on a cruise ship type of thing. Like, you feel like you have to eat because it's there, but like, you're just stuffing yourself. And at that point, you're really even enjoying it at that point.
Right. And to kind of go back though from the food a little bit, you mentioned DVC. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't know what DVC is. So tell us a little bit about that real quick and how it's a good option to save some money on it.
So, the Disney Vacation Club, DVC is a lot of times it's referred to a lot of times, is, when you're staying at a Disney hotel, you're prepaying into, in essence, a timeshare element that you're getting an ownership into these hotels for 40 or 50 years, depending on how long from when it's being built to the last one's sold and then everything. Now, that is good for an element of if someone that's going to be coming every single year or every other year, because you can roll the points over and bank them and everything. But you have to make sure you are consistently going to be coming to Disney, which is an added cost and everything. But with it, you're creating a budget basically almost future-proofing down the road, because you're locking, in essence, today's hotel rates over inflation. So again, yes, it may seem expensive now, but in 30 years and everything, when the hotel prices have more than doubled, you're still now at today's rates and everything. So that's where like the benefit is. It's not saving money now as it is really the long-term game of 20 plus years down the road. And that means you have to be locked in that you really, really, really love Disney and you really want to keep coming to it. Like that is something that is a great option to have. Great resorts and everything. They're beautiful resorts and they offer a lot of perks, and there's other little discounts and other, you get 10% off in the parks and food and merchandise and everything. Like there are great perks to it, but the main thing is if you're going to commit, and these points aren't cheap. I mean, you're probably looking at $40, $50, $100,000 for the cost to lock into this. So again, this is something you got to do for the long term, knowing you're going to keep coming back. But again, with that, within a hotel stay, they also keep coming back. If you are going to be a repeat person using that when you're eating at these resorts, I would say picking one or two better table service restaurants as your experience, so you can enjoy it over the course of maybe 4 or 5 days. and then cutting back on the other days, so you're not feeling like you're overgorging, but then also not overspending that budget. Because again, a normal table service restaurant on Disney property for a family of four, you're easily going to look between $300 to $500 for that
Yeah.
check. So doing that every night is going to really add up.
I was gonna say it's gonna skyrocket that budget you came in with.
Yeah, and again, and yes, there is the meal plan. Now the meal plan, maybe if you just want to know the numbers before you come, it's beneficial for it. But I don't think you currently get the value for it of what you used to. For those that have been going to Disney for a long time, you might remember the old meal plan, from way back in the day, and there was pretty darn good value there.
Yeah.
Basically you'd be paying for the table service, but getting the quick service and snacks for free, to an estimate. Now with it, you have to maximize every single meal, eating at the most expensive quick service, eating at the most expensive table service. And if you're 21 or older, you have to be getting an alcoholic beverage at every single place, and probably trying to aim for the most expensive alcoholic beverage at every place just to get your value of that. And to me, it's not a product that's quite ready for that there, especially if you're also going to places that are using 2 points. If you have 1 point versus 2 points, you're like, what the heck is that? You're getting points for each meal, and certain locations will cost you 2 points, so 2 dinners to go to that one dinner experience. And a lot of times, when you're looking at from what you're spending versus what you're getting, I don't feel this there quite at this moment. Hopefully they create a product, I think they will, but right now I couldn't recommend that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. And just seeing how it works and the amount, like you said, you literally have to just use everything at the highest tier you can for it to even get close to evening out / actually being a little bit of a profit. Otherwise, I agree. I think it's better just to go in and spend your own money instead of prepaying for the dining plan.
Yeah.
Talking about spending your own money, you probably have been spending money. So we can talk about another way to cut costs and credit card points.
Yeah.
And I know Disney even has partnered with Chase, and they have a Chase card to where you can get extra points if you're spending things for Disney, and then you get rewards cards and that money back. And it is a pretty good system. I'm going to be honest, I haven't looked too far into it, but it is another way that if you know you love Disney or you're planning on going and you're looking into getting a credit card anyway, that might be an option for you. Look at it and see how it benefits, because you can get extra discounts and things like that just having a Chase a Visa card.
And again, we've covered credit card points before. And once again, if you haven't seen that video, please go back and look at that one. And we generally kind of go with a 3-card system is what we were going over. Now, I do recommend the Chase Sapphire card more for traveling. The Chase Disney Visa is a great card if you really, really love Disney. You have to love Disney because basically you're gonna get the more points you use while spending on Disney property, their hotels, their food. You're gonna get more points that way. Otherwise, I still probably recommend the Chase Sapphire for just normal travel aspect. But if you're partnering that with the Amex Gold from your food budget back home and rolling those points into it, you can then knock out your flight and hotel right from there, which then makes Disney much more affordable right there. Because if all you're then spending your money on is your tickets, possibly through an annual pass or even just from an individual ticket aspect, and then your food and merchandise when there, you've now taken that $10,000 budget and brought it back down to $3,000 to $4,000. So if you're able to pre-plan and stack those points from your Amex Gold and your Chase Sapphire into that. Now, if you are a really, really big fan of Disney, maybe you have DVC, maybe you have an annual pass, the Disney Chase Visa might be a route to go, because you're going to get those reward points with it, which then you can then turn around and use for spending and everything at Disney, and it works out really well in that sense. But if you're just traveling on a normal basis and Disney's just a part of your normal travel plans, you're doing it maybe once every 5 to 10 years or maybe once in your lifetime, I probably would still stick with the Sapphire and the Amex Gold as my planned go-to for the points to use for that travel. But flight and hotel can be taken care of if you're using the point system that we discussed about in the previous video.
Absolutely.
So definitely a great way to help keep that cost down and balance things out over the long term and everything with it. So again, looking at ticket prices definitely get the bulk aspect of it, or an annual pass and everything. Those are definitely the 2 routes you want to look at from the tickets. Hotels and everything, I still like some of the Disney on-site hotels. I probably would look at the value and moderate. Again, there's a lot of great hotels on property because again, Disney pays attention to detail. So even if you look at it, you're like sitting there like, oh, I wouldn't want to stay at a value and moderate hotel because you're thinking that it's a less property. It's not. They're great. They're great properties. And they still offer a lot of great perks and benefits.
Yeah.
Just for being on there. I personally am a big fan of Art of Animation. That's one of my family's go to. When we stay on there. Great theming for the kids.
I
The
was gonna
pool,
say it's just
Skyliner's
fun.
right there and everything, so it gets you right to and from Epcot Hollywood Studios real quick and easy. So to me, I think the great value of Art of Animation, especially the family suite level rooms.
Mm-hmm.
You get the little kitchenette there, plenty of extra space and bedroom for the kids to be separated from mom and dad a little
Yeah.
bit. So I think that there's a lot of value in there. But if you really are trying to save and really plan for that budget, off-site but you got to make sure you account for the travel expense of whether it's a rental car or an Uber,
Mm-hmm.
paying for parking. Make sure you don't forget that, because you may
Yeah.
think like, oh look, I got a room for half the price, but you forgot about the $25 a day car. You forgot about the $40 a day to park and everything. Now that savings is gone. So, so make sure you're looking at all that combined. Is that then worth saving from the on-site hotels? From the luxury side hotels, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But from the value and moderate side, I think that there's still great benefit there.
Yeah.
And then DVC, I would say if you're really, really big into Disney, you're going to be going a lot. And again, you definitely got to go every 2 to 3 years, because the points, after, you can bank and borrow and everything as they call it or whatever. So every 3 years, basically, you can, have those points saved up for. After that, they go away.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to go every 2 to 3 years, really not worth it at that point.
Yeah.
And you got to make sure also take into account the annual dues, and those will go up over time. You're just at least locking in today's prices now. So you're basically planning, maybe you're looking at long term of like, I'm not only doing this for myself, but I'm doing it for my kids when they're adults, with their kids to be grandkids and everything. If you're looking at that truly generational level, that'd probably be the route maybe to look at with DVC. I personally am not a DVC owner. We know people that are.
Yeah.
But that would be, maybe where I would draw the line of like knowing like I'm doing this for a generational aspect of it, and really trying to have that long-term saving strategy, because it's not going to be in the short term.
So. Oh yeah, no, it's definitely not in the short term. And we want to hear from you too. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if you feel Disney is worth it for you or not. Kind of what we've broken down is that if you love Disney, and you love the stories, you grew up with it, and you love the storytelling and the characters, then it is definitely worth it to go at least once in your life to have that experience. If you're only looking at thrill rides and like something a little bit not as themed, maybe Disney is not the place. So you have no nostalgia for it or anything like that, maybe it's okay to bypass that then as well.
Yeah, again, I think the number one point of this is if you don't have an emotional tie to the stories there, you're not going to feel you got the value for whatever it is you're spending. No matter if you're doing on a big budget or a small budget, you're not going to feel that it's worth it if you don't have that emotional tie. But again, as we always like to say, though, you got to build wealth the boring way.
So your kids can live the bold way.
Until next time.